So this problem centers around a make or buy decision. So again, it's an outsourcing decision. So should we make the product ourselves or should we buy it from somebody else? So in this particular scenario, what you need to do is you need to get the cost expressed on a per unit basis. So you're given in the table, in the problem, the total amount spent for the year. But what you need to do is divide each of these amounts by 70,000 units, which is what you've done right here. So 630,000 in direct materials, divide by your 70,000 units, will give you $9 per unit. Similarly, the $105,000 direct labor, divide by 70,000 is $1.50, and variable overhead, 140,000 divided by your 70,000 units is $2. So that's where these numbers are coming from. So you've got to get it all expressed on a per unit basis. So again, your fixed overhead is not changing as a result of making this decision whether you outsource or not, because you're not told that it is changing. So again, you have to assume it's not going to. And in most cases, it doesn't actually change. So to make the unit internally for this fiber systems company to make the product, it's going to cost them $12.50. Now they have an offer from a company that they can buy this from, ready-made, for $14. And basically the answer would be no, you wouldn't outsource it because you can make it yourself for $12.50, so why would you pay somebody else $14 to make it? So in this case, the answer is no, that you wouldn't actually do this. So that's requirement 1. So for this problem, the next thing we're asked to do is look at it a different way and assume that the company can avoid the $100,000 in fixed cost. So now the fixed costs are relevant because they're changing. So it's the only costs that are relevant are those that change in a particular scenario. So now what we're doing here is we've already calculated that the cost to make is $12.50 versus the cost to buy is $14. We know it's 75,000 units that we're talking about. So what we're doing now is we're factoring in the difference in the fixed cost. So to make the switches yourself, your company's going to incur $455,000 in fixed cost, whereas if it outsources and buys the switches from another company, it's going to reduce the fixed cost by $100,000. So fixed cost is now only going to be $355,000. So when you do the math here, now it turns out that the decision is still cheaper for the company to make its own decision and make its own switches, because the cost to make the switches is $1,392,500 versus $1,405 million. So even though you're saving the $100,000 in fixed cost, it's still not enough to make it attractive to outsource for that particular product. Requirement 3 is saying, given the last scenario, what is the most that Fiber Systems would be willing to pay to outsource the switches? So this is basically an algebra type of problem. So this is how you'd set it up. You'd want to look at you want to see what number or what the dollar value would be looking at the cost of making the switches versus the cost of outsourcing. What would make those two equal? So you know you have the cost of making them is $12.50 times your $7,500 plus your fixed cost of $455. So now what we're doing is we're trying to solve for the outsourcing price. We know $14.50 is too high, so what we're trying to do here is figure out, well, what would be the price at which it would be beneficial for the company to buy from another supplier rather than make the product. So here we're saying 75,000 times X equals 355, and of course this is straight math here, so what we want to do is get your X on one side of the equation. So we're going to subtract your 355 from both sides of the equation. And so this is, we're going to subtract 355 here as well. So this will leave you on this side of the equation with 1,037,500 equals 75x. Then we're going to divide both sides by 75 because we're trying to get the unknown on one side of the equation. So now x is equal to 1,037,500 divided by your 75, which will come out to be $13.83. So if the price offered from an external company to make that product for you, you would buy it if it's $13.83 or lower. It'll only be beneficial if it's equal to or less than $13.83. So that concludes problem 8-26.